There you are, and welcome to the Nine Questions podcast, where I'm going to bring exciting insights and wisdom from some of the niftiest leaders in our community. So, I'm your host, Sam Thompson, and I'm excited to share all of this with you. Each podcast is going to have someone that's an authority on the subject matter that we're going to talk, and we're going to look at stories and strategies and tips on how to live life in our magical world, right? How to navigate today's adventure, so to speak. So, whether you're looking for inspiration or tips or some wisdom, some motivation, practical advice, this podcast is for you. So, tune in the 9th of each month for the new 9 questions. Don't forget to subscribe and rate. Share would be cool. Now, keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and let's get on with the show. Thanks for watching. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 9 questions. Today, we're going to be sitting down with Arlene Bailey. This is going to be a real treat for you. Arlene is a visionary artist and author of Quest of Women Know That Self, working in the realm of sacred wild woman in all her many visages. Her paintings, poetry, and prose reflect the raw, visceral, and innate wild in all of women, while also challenging, questioning everything we know to be true about who we are as women walking in this particular time. And I'm going to have all her bio down in the show notes, as well as links to all her sites. So you make sure you see that down below. Arlene, welcome. Seems like
Thank
yesterday I
you.
was talking to you.
Is
Arlene
that
and
right?
just Arlene and I have known each other for a little while, so that's this is going to be kind of fun because I'm going to ask her things I don't know. All right. Now I knew you before you're in your current form, right? Where you're doing mainly, writing, poetry, painting, like that. Now I knew you before that time as a wise woman herbalist. Can you talk about that transition that went about going from one particular thing, which was your wise woman herbalist, into something which I consider totally different, painting and writing, that type of thing? Can you talk about what that transition was like?
Well, I'm going to back up just a second and I'm going to say I think we actually met when we were doing Reiki Master Teacher
Yep.
training. And um, okay, I'm going to back up again. So, my work through most of my life was as an anthropologist working for the Women in Development program. I've always had a passion for working with women. When I decided that I no longer wanted to do all that traveling, and my husband and I bought land here in North Carolina, I went through, different incarnations. First I did the Reiki Master Teacher training. Then I started a women's circle. And from there I moved to, um, that's when I started beginning studying and working with herbs. Then I moved to doing the teaching. We had the land, and I decided I wanted other women to know about this ancient tradition of wise women healers. So it's really kind of all connected. It's just you had a few different reincarnations. So I worked with the herbs and made products and sold products and things and did and taught um, for many years. And then about 2017, 16 maybe, this voice started saying, I want to paint. And I would be sitting there, putting shrink wraps on bottles and, you know, just doing, making candles, doing all those kinds of things. And I remember I'd always be sitting there saying, but we don't paint. I mean, like, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. How am I supposed to paint? And, this went on for about a year. And the voice became more insistent. Sure, you are aware of that. You know, the voice became more insistent. And finally, I discovered this woman on Facebook, and she offered, the intro classes, and I liked her style and her attitude. It was just called the art of allowing. There was no wrong or right way for anything. And it was just a matter of allowing who wanted to come through the canvas, who or what wanted to come through the canvas. So I thought, well, what have I got to lose? This class doesn't cost very much. I'll do it. I'll see, and maybe I'll shut that voice up. Haha. Anyway, so I took the class and I was in love. I was absolutely, positively in love. And I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I began to phase out my herbal practice. And I started doing more painting. And the writing, I've always written. I've written since I was a little girl, but I never showed it. But along with the painting came messages, came writing, and I got brave enough in the container that we had for the painting to start sharing. And I was just blown away by people's responses.
So the writing came from the painting, not the other way around. So it wasn't writing and then you had a vision, you painted, but it's the other way. Now that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the whole premise of this art of allowing concept is you allow who wants to come through the portal, the canvas is the portal. You allow that, and they bring messages. And so, that's where I picked up my writing again. And then I discovered that every morning I would, cup of coffee and a journal, walk out to my swing in my grove. And I would sit there, and all of a sudden the words would just start flowing. I have rarely ever sat down with specific intention to write. Because usually spirit, goddess, whomever, the great big cat in the sky or whomever, it's like the words just start flowing. And if I don't catch them right then, they're gone because they're not coming from me, they're coming through me. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, totally, yeah.
I mean, I kind of consider myself, I have a hard time taking on other people's descriptors, but I have come to see myself as a modern day, definitely a modern day poet, I guess. But like a seer, a Pythia, because if it was truly, if it was something I just decided, I want to write about this, I'm just going to write about it, I would memory that. I would remember that. I would remember words, and I would remember, I started this on such and such. But, and I would probably be able to grasp some of it and bring it back if I didn't have something to write with it. But most of my writing, well, a lot of people use the word channel. That's not really my term, but that is kind of how they are. They're channeled. They start flowing. I better grab a pen. Like she gives me one chance to catch it. One chance.
Now, when I read your part of your bio, you'd mentioned the sacred wild woman. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Explain what do you mean by that?
In reading ancient texts and ancient history, especially looking at Sumeria and Mesopotamia and places like that, the way women were acted and the way they were treated was so vastly different than what we have now. Women were, it was more of a partnership society, and women were revered. There were not all these restrictions on what they couldn't do. Think of the priestesses in the temple. They they sang and they danced and, sex magic and, um, they trained young girls and they created things. When the shift to a more patriarchal, not more, but there was a huge shift from that lifestyle to patriarchy. This was at the fall of Sumeria. Um, and that's when the Abrahamic religion came along. And with those, there came all these restrictions.
Hmm.
How you had to dress, how you had to act, couldn't go out without a male family member unless you were married. But if you weren't married, you couldn't go out without a male family. You couldn't do anything without a male's permission. And we lost this concept of partnership. I'm not one who ever said that, men and women were equal, because obviously I don't see it that we each have our own talent and jobs and ways of being. But in the last, I guess I don't know from how far I would go back to where I was, in the 60s, and where women's rights were changing almost on a daily basis. And a lot of women just took control of their lives and said, well, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to dress that way. I want to be able to have, I want to be able to have a bank account just in my name. I want to be able to get credit just in my name without having to ask my husband or my father for permission. These were all laws back then.
And we don't realize it wasn't that long ago.
It was not. I mean, it's in our lifetime. So my goal, as I started writing, those were the kinds of writing came through. It was about, I kind of had to learn about this too. It was about rewilding women's soul. Women have this innate wild, but we are told that it's wrong.
Hmm.
Don't be so loud. That's not nice for a woman. Oh, you can't say that. Women don't say that. Oh, well, you can't go out and do that. You've got to have a man with, and don't get me wrong, I was married for 48 years and partnered for 50. I adored my husband, who thankfully was also very supportive. As a sociologist, he taught a lot of positions in society. And I don't know, once my writings started coming, that's what they were about. And then that term, rewilding soul, and remembering. I want to remember the women who sat in circle in the ancient village. I want to remember the wise women that knew all the herb beauty and knew what magic, I will use that term, what magic to perform, to take care of things in the village. I don't, we went from that to where women's gnosis, their knowledge was very revered by all the members within their circle, within their village. To, if the village had a wise woman, she was relegated to the edge of the village, and you had, like, oh, children don't go down there. You want to stay away from her. But the adult, would go if they needed to. So I don't know. I see this over and over. It's reconfirmed to me by, sometimes I just say goddess. Sometimes, like when Regan dropped into my life and started demanding that I write about her, and I'm like, but I don't know you. She's like, well, let's change that. you know, and yeah, I mean, to go on and on. I just want women to know that there's a term that it's, I think it's fairly new, but I'm not sure. It's called a performative feminine, and it's about women knowing their place in society and sticking to this rigid set of performative expectations. Society tells us, well, you're a woman, you can only do this. You're a woman, you must dress like this. You're a woman, you must, well, you can't go study that. That's a male thing, you know. But that's the term performative feminine. And that's not our true nature. That's not our true nature. It's just what we've been conditioned through thousands of years.
Hmm.
Do. Don't raise your voice. Women don't raise their voice. Speak softly. Men like it better when you speak softly. I mean, this is a very generalized expression, but yeah, I mean, I thought, because I was partnered with someone who saw me as a human being, just another human being, and didn't lay all those layers of patriarchal expectation onto me. I wanted other women to experience that as well, or to at least know about it. I want men to know about it. There's so many amazing men out there. We're lucky if we have amazing men in our lives, but they're out there. They're as tired of patriarchy as we are. At least most of them are, because it adversely affects them as well. Mm-hmm. So anyway, on to it.
So talking about inspiration for painting, it becomes then writing or whatnot. So do you have any particular way that you get inspired to do those? Or is it just you just kind of sit in front of it and see what happens?
Well, I start feeling the call to paint. And it's like I know, okay, I have to paint. And I start with what's called the ground, which is literally throwing paint on canvas, using my hands, because it's a very visceral connection that way. And I create a ground, and I'm watching as I'm using a lot of different colors, a lot of different strokes. Sometimes I might use stencils on there. Sometimes I might use a particular medium, like there's this thing called glass gel bead, which makes it real sparkly and shiny. It gives it texture. There's a lot of different media that give the canvas texture. So that's kind of what we start with. And the whole time, I'm listening to just see what's coming through. And what I would say, at least for me, 99% of the time, what happens when I decide I'm finished with the ground, I see her. She's there. And all I have to do then is start bringing her to fruit.
Interesting.
And it will change from that step to the end. It will change. But she guides me, whoever she is in that moment. Like I had a really rough time with the breed I painted. She kept wanting different things. Same thing was true when I painted Queen Boudica. And then also when I have one called, but it's an antlered woman, but she has gold antlers, and she's all in with. She came through on the full moon in Capricorn a few years ago. So I took
your art is it's beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is. It really is. Now you mentioned that you have an upcoming project, right? A book.
I do.
So let's talk about it. What is it?
Well, I have, oh wow, I have several hundred writings, and I have the past 2 years I've been a contributor to different anthologies, and finally, again, the voice, the one that wakes you up at 4 a.m. in the morning, um, has said it's time to do your book. The anthologies are wonderful. They've gotten you exposure. Your Facebook page has gotten a lot of exposure. It's time. And I'm like, really? Do you know how many I have to sort through to figure out what goes in the book and what goes where? But yeah, so this year is that's my project, major project for this year is I'm writing my book, um, all my writing, including the death writings that I
Mm.
did. Um, my husband died. I think that's a very critical group of writings to get out there. But
Not something we address in the American culture. We don't talk about
no,
it.
yeah, and I mean they might. Who knows? They might wind up being just a small, separate little book. But right now, I've been told that they should be the last chapter in the book. So
Well,
listening,
it's only fair that you do a book because you made me write one.
I
So
know.
yeah, for people that don't know the backstory, I tried to get out of writing. I wrote a piece for Girl God Books on the Morgan when they came out the anthology for the Morgan. I tried every way I knew how to get out of doing it, and it just didn't work. So, yeah, so that kind of got me started down that path. And I got my one, and I'm one and done. I think I'm good with what I got. Um, Now I know you say this a lot, and I think I like the way that you phrase it, but I'd like for you to kind of talk about it some. You use a phrase a lot, each one teach one, because I know I've overheard you talk to my beloved about it. So can you talk about that? I'm assuming that's like a personal philosophy, what that kind of means.
Well, actually, it came from, I guess, when I stepped from when I shut the door on the anthropologist and decided that I was going to start exploring some other things. It was right after we first moved to North Carolina, Larry and I first moved to North Carolina, and I discovered a woman in Asheville who did a 3-year priestess training, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like to do that. And it was wonderful because it was looking at all of the goddess foremothers, um, looking at the archaeology of different finds and everything. And and she is the one who gave me that term, who taught it. She would say, no matter what you learn in life, remember this, each one teaches. If each one teaches one, we exponentially spread new ideas. So that was just a phrase I latched onto. In fact, I just used it the other day with somebody posted something on my page, in response to something I had posted, and I said, I think she was saying, well, if we could just get that out there to more people. And I said, well, a very wise woman once told me, each one teach one. Because think about it, if we each just teach one person, and that person teaches one person, so forth and so on. I think it's a beautiful sentiment and a brilliant way to change the world, actually.
Yeah, I can see that, because you're carrying on a legacy, right? People are adding to that and so forth. I like that. So if you were sitting with someone that's new to, I'm going to say pagan path, and we'll use it as an umbrella that covers all of them because I just don't want to take the time. I'm lazy. I'm gonna own it. I'm lazy. I don't want to talk about all the different paths that can or cannot fall under that. So we'll just say that as an umbrella. Um, what piece of advice would you give someone now that's just coming to the pagan path?
Wow. Um, oh, I think I would have to say, I don't know. Um, I think I would just have to go back to the idea of, the pagans were people of the earth. I mean, pagan, pagani, the Latin term for a country dweller. Um, and they were the people, they were the people that knew the cycles of the seasons.
Hmm.
They knew, I mean, and that includes how to work with the crops, how to work with the animals. They had their gods and their goddesses. Um, so yeah, if somebody is new to paganism, I would say, first and foremost, remember this. At its core, at least this is how I feel about it, at stripping it down to its very core, it is being in tune with nature. It is understanding the cycles of the seasons, and it's the rituals that people created to honor those. And every civilization, every culture, um, like people in Ireland have some, how they look at all of this that's different than how people in Scandinavia. I mean, it's all similar because it goes back to, at least for me, it all goes back to that word pagan, country person, and how they lived in harmony with the earth. You know, so yeah, if somebody, I mean, and I have people ask me that on my group. How does your work differ from paganism? It does. It's an aspect, at least in my, to use the broader term. To me, pagan is an umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you are, whether you follow Nordic traditions or Celtic traditions, or, you love the life that the priestesses had in the ancient temples. I mean, they were honoring the moon cycle. They were looking at nature to guide them, um, through the different times of the year. So I don't know. I guess I really don't know what I would say. Something like that. It, yeah.
Getting back to your writing and painting, what's one thing that you've gotten from that you didn't expect?
Courage.
Ah, yeah, it would
Courage
take a lot. Yeah.
to there. Courage to share my writing because I'd written for years. I just never shared it with anyone. Um, and courage to show my art. And courage to step up and do this page on Facebook that constantly blows me away.
Now, which page exactly? 'Cause I know I've got her Sacred Wild.
Yes,
So
that's the name.
we'll have a link to that down in the show notes. So make sure that you go check it out.
It's allegedly a page for women, but there are a number of men on it as well. And, and my attitude there is, as long we need those men, we need our allies. And this goes for women too, as long as everybody, you know, I don't mind somebody challenging me, but have zero tolerance for the trolls. So, but yeah.
Now I know you've with your anthropology and that life that you led, you got to visit a lot of different places. What's the most interesting place that you visited?
Oh, it has to be Thailand.
Hmm.
Yeah, I worked with the hill tribe villages up in the northern part of Thailand, up on the Myanmar border. Um, and they are the indigenous of the area. They are not Thai. They are called the hill tribe villages, and they mostly migrated down from I always forget that, like Mongolia and um, where Kathmandu, can't country. Terrible to get older and not remember. Like I want to pull that word out, but yeah, they're the equivalent of our indigenous tribes here in the U.S. From the standpoint that they were on the land first,
Hmm.
before other people started migrating down. Thailand gives them status, but not citizenship. It's kind of a strange thing. But it was fascinating because um, I love different cultures and I love learning about why people believe what they believe, why they act the way they do. There was lots of opportunity there. Now, I worked for, again, the UN Women in Development Program, and my primary job was we were teaching women about their cycles and how not to get pregnant, because pregnancy was just running amok in those tribes. They were, they didn't understand how things, how their bodies work. And so that's one of the things that UN does around the world. And then also making sure that babies had formula and things like that. But no, it was such a fascinating experience. I mean, it was like nothing I ever experienced. I mean, I also worked in Guatemala for a while, with Island Maya tribes. But it was just, I think anytime you're outside of true Western society, you learn so much about yourself. I learned so much about myself because I was in working in those two places. I was in two different societies that were not Western.
Opposite ends of the world too.
That too.
Kind of.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so I ask this to everybody that comes on. What's one thing that we can do individually to make our community better?
I would have to go back to that idea of each one teach one.
Hmm.
Because that's a pretty encompassing, I mean, it sounds like a really simple idea, but it's kind of almost like each one feeds one,
Hmm.
feed this person, then this person can feed this person. If you teach this person can teach this person. And and the ideals that we try to live by, those of us, again, to go back to the word pagan community, the ideals we try to live by, living in harmony with nature and taking care of nature, doing our rituals, having a deep spiritual tradition. Um, the more we can get that out, the more people that we could share that with and get it out into the world. Yes, for lack of a better way of putting it, I think that, I mean, short of, just saying, okay, well, I think that, we can recycle more, I like, I like the idea of that each one teach one, share what you're doing, just like what you're doing. Share what you're doing, because you never know whose world you're going to open with that new information. Because I have people that come on my website that really don't know. I'm sorry, I'm watching this crazy squirrel jump all over the place. I've had so many women come to my site, my page, who aren't really familiar, but are drawn by the art of the writing. And I feel like every time one of them says, "Oh, I love these ideas. I love this idea of the wheel of the year. I love this idea of working with nature, working in harmony with nature, and trying to we had lots of conversations between winter solstice and now about the dark time of the year is that time for quiet and introspection, being less outward. And I can't even tell you how many women said, "I'm so grateful to know this, that I've always thought there was something wrong with me because I wanted to be quiet and turned inward during this time. And society tells me I'm not supposed to be that." I won't say what I said about society.
We call it cave time.
Yes, I do too.
We call it cave time.
Yes.
And Julie may have got it from you. So I don't know.
Yes, no, it's like, don't bother me in my cave.
Well, I mean, we use it for that time of planning for the next year. What do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? What are some things that we want to no longer do? What do we want to, weed out so we have room for other things, right? So before we wrap up, do you have any questions that you would like, or a question that you would like to ask me? And if not, that's okay.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't.
Okay. That's
now, if I didn't know,
okay.
I might have questions to ask you, but
yeah, I'm kind of an open book. So yeah.
Me too. So
all right. So for those of you that joined us, thank you very much for showing up, watching. Feel free to make sure to visit all Arlene's links I'm going to have down below. And we're going to finish up our conversation on metal magic over in Patreon. So if I'm not seeing you there, get over there. So we'll see y'all. Thanks.
thank you.